We begin today's wrestling news and rumors video with a bit of news regarding Shinsuke Nakamura, because for those of you unaware, Shinsuke Nakamura was a guest on Renee Young's podcast, and among the subjects that Shinsuke and Renee discussed, one subject that did come up was regarding Brock Lesnar's run in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Nakamura talked a bit about his match against Lesnar in New Japan back in 2006, with Nakamura mentioning that Lesnar was very unprofessional back then. And when it was all said and done, Shinsuke Nakamura made it clear that he would like to rematch Brock Lesnar in WWE when the Beast Incarnate returns if he is given the chance or opportunity. Clearly, Shinsuke feels he has unfinished business with Brock Lesnar, and let us know if you guys would be interested in WWE eventually booking a Shinsuke Nakamura vs Brock Lesnar feud in WWE. And if this were to happen, it would basically mean that Brock Lesnar would be returning to WWE on Friday Night SmackDown. And make sure you guys sound off as to which brand Brock Lesnar should return on in WWE between Raw and SmackDown. While there are occasionally some interesting aspects when it comes to Monday Night Raw, there's no doubt that lots of fans are beginning to truly dislike the Raw brand, with the lackluster and downright boring storylines and booking that continues to plague the show in a pretty negative way. It has become increasingly clear that Monday Night Raw is far from being the best show right now, with the absence of the Fiend Bray Wyatt, who was undoubtedly one of the bright spots on Monday nights, and helped to make the show seem at least a bit intriguing and interesting. However, since his unfortunate loss to Randy Orton at WrestleMania 37 and the subsequent breakup between The Fiend and Alexa Bliss, The Fiend Bray Wyatt has been nowhere to be seen in WWE, and it cannot be argued that Bray's absence is very noticeable on Raw. And while WWE are putting in a lot of time and effort into Alexa Bliss's storyline on the Raw brand in recent weeks following WrestleMania, many fans feel as though Vince McMahon and WWE are subtly sending Bray Wyatt shade and disrespect by basically giving Bray Wyatt's Fiend character and persona to Alexa Bliss, who Vince clearly has more of an appreciation for compared to Bray Wyatt, whom Vince was never particularly fond of at any point of his WWE career. However, according to a new backstage rumor, WWE are beginning to realize that Bray Wyatt and his Fiend character are one of the bright spots on Monday Night Raw that needs to come back if the ratings and viewership for Raw are going to be going up anytime soon. And it looks as though WWE could be preparing for the Fiend Bray Wyatt's return as we speak, with Bray Wyatt recently sending a cryptic message on social media with a caption reading, "Miss me yet?" with Bray including a hashtag zombies, which is likely in reference to the bad zombie lumberjack match at WrestleMania Backlash between Damian Priest and The Miz, which highlighted a big problem in WWE right now, that being terribly thought out and lackluster booking and storylines. It's rumored that Bray Wyatt will be returning to action in WWE within the next couple of weeks, perhaps as early as next week on Raw, now that Bray Wyatt has become active on social media teasing his return. And now the question begs, what are the WWE planning to do with the Fiend Bray Wyatt when he does return? While an obvious storyline would be for the Fiend Bray Wyatt to seek revenge on Alexa Bliss for betraying him at WrestleMania 37, and perhaps trying to get that win back against Randy Orton, many fans feel as though the Fiend Bray Wyatt should move on from the Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton storyline as soon as possible, and perhaps return for a completely different storyline and direction, and leave Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton in the past to do their own thing. However, some fans also mentioned that Bray Wyatt should steer clear of Alexa Bliss and let her continue on with her storyline on her own, but that The Fiend still needs to get his win back over Randy Orton before he can truly move on to bigger and better things. There is a rumor going around that The Fiend Bray Wyatt could be inserted into WWE title contention following his return against Bobby Lashley, and this would certainly be a fresh and new feud for the Raw brand that could potentially be interesting if booked correctly. Make sure you guys sound off in the comment section below if you're happy that The Fiend Bray Wyatt is going to be returning to WWE on Raw very soon. And what do you think WWE should do with Bray Wyatt when he does return? Should Bray Wyatt continue his storyline with Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton? Or should WWE move in a completely different and fresh direction for The Fiend on the Raw brand when he comes back? Possibly a WWE title feud with Bobby Lashley. While Drew McIntyre has turned his career around to a great extent in WWE and is continuously being featured in and around the WWE Championship scene on the Raw brand for much of the past 2 years, clearly not everyone believes Drew McIntyre should stay in WWE, despite his recent successes. For those of you unaware, former WWE writer Vince Russo made his feelings clear that WWE have done wrong with Drew McIntyre with his recent booking, and feels that WWE don't know how to book larger-than-life stars anymore, with Russo feeling like WWE have ruined Drew McIntyre with their lackluster booking. Vince Russo would go on to say that Drew McIntyre should look to get a good agent and leave WWE when his contract expires to go down the road of WWE superstars turned actors like Dave Bautista and John Cena, and that Drew McIntyre has what it takes to be a true action hero movie star, and that WWE is holding him back. Let us know if you agree with Vince Russo that WWE have essentially ruined Drew McIntyre recently with his booking, and that Drew should consider leaving WWE for Hollywood in the future when his current contract expires. For those of you unaware, the WWE have officially released and fired a couple of employees and superstars from their roster today, with the talent released including NXT referee Drake, who was a well-respected referee in WWE and known to do a good job, and even had some backstage responsibilities. NXT's Alexander Wolf was also released, and by all means, Alexander's release was a surprise, considering he was just on NXT TV this week in a prominent storyline, as well as Jessamyn Duke, who was most known as being a member of the Four Horsewomen with Ronda Rousey. Vanessa Bourne was also released from WWE today, an aspiring WWE wrestler who spent several years working for NXT and was even called up to the WWE's main roster in 2020, but was never utilized. Lastly, NXT's Kavita Devi was also let go from her WWE contract today as well, and Kavita was known for being the first Indian-born female professional wrestler in WWE. While Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns seem to be on the same page to some extent at the WrestleMania Backlash 2021 pay-per-view event, with the show concluding with Seth Rollins attacking Cesaro, if new rumors are true, WWE may be moving in the direction of a huge feud or rivalry between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship on Friday Night SmackDown. In a recent interview, Seth Rollins made it clear that if Jimmy or Jey Uso get in his way again, Roman Reigns will have a big problem with the Architect. A new backstage rumor has revealed that Vince McMahon is planning a big feud between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins on SmackDown in the coming months, a feud that will likely start with the Usos causing Seth Rollins more problems on SmackDown, thus resulting in a clash between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, with a rumor stating that Seth Rollins could be sneak attacking Roman Reigns on SmackDown this week, with it apparently very likely that this would lead to WWE booking a massive triple threat match for the Universal Championship between Roman Reigns, Cesaro, and Seth Rollins at Hell in a Cell 2021.